Howdy gang, Jeff McAleer once again, and today I'm excited to take a look at one of the newer releases from our good friends over at GMT Games. Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle Raid, designed by Jeremy White. This is a solitaire game, and I'm sure almost all of you watching already know about the Doolittle Raid, but in case you don't, on April 18th, 1942, the United States actually launched an air raid on Tokyo and the island of Honshu in a strike against Japan in retaliation for the Pearl Harbor attack. And there was very little damage done to the city of Tokyo, and this is still actually a fairly controversial chapter of the Pacific War because, as I mentioned, there was so little damage done to Tokyo that really, in that respect, the raid was kind of a failure. But the main objective for the Doolittle Raid was to show the Japanese people that the United States could strike at their home island. The interesting thing that I know so far about Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle Raid, is this isn't just about the raid itself. It's the build-up to the raid, the actual air raid, as well as the return of the Hornet back to San Francisco. As I mentioned before, this is a solitaire game, so its solitaire suitability is a 9. I do understand that there are some optional rules in here that will allow for, I believe, a second as well as possibly a third player. It is medium complexity, and it is for ages 14 and up. So let's get this open and see what we've got, because this looks pretty cool. All right, so we got a bag of dice, the mea culpa note. All right, looks like there are some errors. So this is really an errata sheet. So there we go. And we've got a rule book. Let's take a quick look through here. It is 60 pages. And we're just going to try to take a quick peek. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So it's kind of explaining the concepts of the different maps, because I think there's various different maps in here. Attacking, sequence of play, a lot of illustrations as well in here. Yeah, look at that. Very nice. The different maps. Cool. Just kind of flip through different sequences. I will point out from my experience, the Enemy Coast Ahead series is a little more complex than some games out there. I mean, granted, we're not talking, oh my gosh, it's going to take you weeks to figure out how to play, but it is not normally an introductory system, I guess we would say. And as we can see, there's 60 pages of rules, so you're going to go through that. All right, so we got the rule book there. We've got various different target maps, it looks like. Huh, cool. What about the target at night? Oh, sweet. I'm wondering, it's very possible that you may not necessarily be trying to have the bombers attack every one of these targets. You might actually select your targets in the midst of the planning phase. Wind check, wind effects, flight hazard, target acquisition, the flight turn, flying on fumes. Interesting that they've got the flying on fumes because the B-25Bs couldn't return back to the carrier. Number one, because they weren't designed to be landed on carriers. But number two, they were going to be so low on fuel once they got to Japan that they needed to go try to fly to China. I know one of the B-25Bs ended up landing in Russia. In fact, that crew was interned for about a year. So we've got underway check, sea hazard, launch, naval turn. See, there's a lot of moving parts here. And see, even in the beginning of the game, you're doing your planning. So there's January, February, March, April. Diplomacy check, modifications. One of the aspects of this game is how successful is the raid going to be? And what kind of effect is it going to have on American morale? Because that was the big reason for the raid itself. It was to demoralize the Japanese as well as boost morale of the Americans. Wow, look at all these. There is lots and lots. Fleet crewmen. Japanese ordnance. Wow. Possibility of a Japanese strike force arriving. So it's, as far as I understand, it's very possible that the Hornet task force might have to fight surface ships. Okay. Victory point tracks. And then we've got counters. Very nice. The Hornet, the Enterprise. Cool. I always dig the GMT solitaire games. They don't do a ton of solitaire games, but when they do, they're usually very, very interesting. Okay, so here we've got the B-25Bs. Okay. Aha! Then we've got a bigger play mat, or I guess board. It is paper. So I'm going to put that to the side because I'll take a closer look, I should say, at that. As you can see, this is a pretty good size layout here for the game board. As I mentioned before, this is paper, so you might want to take a little piece of plastic, or I shouldn't say little, take a piece of plastic or fiberglass and place it over the map. But when we take a look here, here's the flight map, which is that area here. I can tell you right now, you're going to need to have a good area on your table to be able to play, because not only do we have this, we also saw all those charts that you're going to be looking at as well. Man, there's just loads going on. Security track. Because of course you don't want the Japanese to find out what's being planned. The task force layout. Oh. All this stuff. Pretty wild. We've got the carrier deck. Looks like you might stack the different planes that are going off in the different flights. We've got monthly breakdowns as well. Pretty cool. Man, there is a lot going on in this game. You can tell just by the setup of this map. Debriefing manual. Oh, this is how you're going to find out what the various different, what the Army assessment is, the Navy assessment, Joint Chiefs, the White House, Roosevelt's mood. Oh, wow. And of course, what the Japanese feel about it. Then we've got a scenario book. And looks like there are 10 scenarios. Very cool. Man, this is pretty jam-packed. Looks pretty nice. And they've really gone out of their way with the illustrations in this, too, I have to admit. This is a little more lavishly illustrated than I'm used to seeing. And usually the GMT books do have quite a lot of illustrations to them as well. All right, so we've got those two books. We've got the counters. We've got all these various tables and charts. Look at all those. I'm still putting them away. And then the rule book, the dice, as well as the map. And that is what we find when we take everything from Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle Raid, outside the box. This game is currently available from our friends over at GMT. It carries an MSRP of $60. And of course, if you want to learn more about Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle Raid, or any of GMT's other fantastic titles, be sure to go to gmtgames.com. Before I wrap up, I do want to mention, if you're a fan of the Gaming Gang videos, or if you go over to thegaminggang.com, where about 95% of our content is located, and you happen to dig what we do, be sure to help support us through our Patreon page. We have giveaways every month, and you can support us for as little as $1 a month. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and for the latest in gaming news, reviews, movies, comics, TV, and more, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And until next time, thanks for watching.